So, I want to talk about something that has been happening for quite some time now. Something that's been affecting our politics, our nations, our homes, our very culture itself. Now, some of you may agree with me, others may just think I'm some kind of loony pushing hate speech and fear mongering, but the reality is what I'm about to say is the truth, whether you accept it or not. Now, it's very clear and very obvious that the globalists, as well as the universal left, has been pushing for open borders and universal benefits for quite some time now. And for some of those nations, they have achieved such that, opening their borders, allowing just influx of migrants flowing into their nations, flowing into their towns, their countries, their neighborhoods, their cities, everywhere. And the question is it really making the nations better? Is it really helping or benefiting these nations? Are they truly prospering under these ideologies and under these practices? To go into it, we have to look a bit deeper. Now, the left, as well as the globalists, believe that a borderless world is necessary for the advancement of mankind. And depending on your beliefs, that may be true. You see, they believe that if no nations exist, a world with no borders, no nations, no sense of home, that everyone of every religion, every creed, every race, every form or nation will stand together side by side, hold hands, and sing Kumbaya while walking into the wilderness in peace and harmony. Well, that's not the case. And you know it's not. All you have to do is just look at human history. The things that we've done, the things that humanity as a whole have done, the rise and falls of many empires. Example, during the final days of the Roman Empire, the Romans grew complacent. They allowed massive amounts of migrants to move into the Roman Empire, serve within their military, their leadership positions, their politicians, everything. They gave non-Roman citizens, essentially, a much wider role in society. And what happened eventually? Well, those immigrants to the Roman Empire eventually turned on the Romans, turned on their beliefs, their culture, and destroyed the Romans from within, and thus created their own city, their own culture. This is history. You cannot deny it. It has been written in the text, and it is what's been written about Rome. Many nations have fell this way. And history has a very bad habit of repeating itself. Across Europe, we have tons of politicians saying we must bring in more people for the sake of diversity and inclusion. But the reality is, neither of those countries have prospered. The countries have not gained anything. They've just increased their population by millions, overcrowded their cities, their towns. They're draining the resources of local governments. But they're saying that this is for the good of all. But now we receive reports such as Ireland, Britain and London, Germany, saying that the local population, the native population to these countries, will soon be the minority of their own home. And what happens when the native population becomes the minority in their own home? Well, we look back to the colonization of the Americas. The natives ruled the Americas hundreds of years unchecked. Now, they also warred with each other, and empires were built amongst the Indians. But for a long time, their existence was their own. But then the discovery of the Americas by Christopher Columbus happened, and the colonization of Europe began. At first, the Europeans came with peace, offering goods, gold, supplies. But of course, things turned savage. The conquistadors of Spain spread their rule across Central America, and eventually the European settlements would form the original 13 colonies, and they too would war against the Indians, especially during the French and Indian War. My point is, though the natives were the big population of the Americas, eventually the colonists moved in. They conquered, and then the natives eventually became the minorities in their own home. And the old Americans, as well as the old Hispanics and Central Americans, they eventually outgrew the native population, and they took over their home, their lands. This is true, and it is written in the history, the text. We see it, and we know what happened. And when we look at Europe with their increase of migrants, their increase just everywhere, we see the same thing happen. You have a foreign population moving in to Europe and slowly outbreeding and outnumbering the local population. And I honestly believe history will repeat itself, and eventually they will either take over the nations completely, either by force or by just simply outbreeding them, or both. It's honestly hard to tell. Now, as I said, some of y'all may sit here and go, you're just fear-mongering. You're just, spouting out lies. No, I'm not. We are human. And look at all of the monstrosities that humanity has done throughout the years. We've done tons of good, don't get me wrong, but we've done just as much bad and evil. And at some point, unless Europe does something to secure their own heritage, their own nationality, they will just have to accept the other populations as their rule. You don't have to look far. There's plenty of bigger channels such as Sargon, Computing Forever, Black Pigeon Speaks. The list can go on. And they'll tell you what's going on. They're not lying. They're speaking the truth, and they're labeled as haters. They're labeled as spreading lies, when the reality is they're showing the truth. But what they say goes against what the leftists and the globalists want. Their idea of a perfect world and the perfect source of power is threatened by these ideas. That's why there's always been such huge censoring on YouTube, Facebook, just everything that goes against this globalist view is being censored. Because in their mind, the best way to achieve world peace is by just allowing every culture, every ethnicity, every creed to just come together and form. But it's not going to be as they want it to be. It's not going to turn to be this whole everyone holds hands and parades together. One creed, or one ethnicity of people, or even one religion of people. They will eventually see this opportunity, and they will use it to advance their power. Just as every civilization and empire that has been built on this planet has done before us, we haven't changed in that nature. We haven't changed at all when it comes to that. Humans lust for power. They build civilizations and governments, and they wish to expand their borders, span their control, span their influence. And if you have a neighboring nation that is willing to just let you come in by the millions unchecked, that sounds like the perfect opportunity to spread your influence, to increase your power, to expand your borders, which is exactly what has happened in Europe. Here in America, we have an incredible border crisis where millions upon millions of people are trying to gain entry into the United States. And we have our own political leaders saying that we just need to open the border, let them in, and they will sing Kumbaya, and everything will be perfect. When the reality is no, it will not be perfect. People will come in, and they will continue to shape neighborhoods to their fitting, how they want it. Because if they outdo the population in numbers, And if they get in political power or positions of power to make the changes necessary that they want, as far as they're concerned, the native population can suck it because they're in control now. They have the power. They are the ones who rule the day. This is happening. Now, how it ends, I don't know. We have politicians all around the world saying we just need to drop our borders and let everyone in with open arms. We have people attacking Christians saying that if you don't accept this and if you don't choose to fight and help these people, you are not a Christian. But there is something wrong with that statement. You see, as a Christian, yes, God wants us all to live together as His children, but we live in the real world, and God understands this. He understands that the world is full of sin, and humans are dark creatures at times. He understands that, yes, we love God, but at the same time, there's people who is willing to protect their home, even if it means killing other people to do so. And that's not a bad thing. It truly isn't. You have every right to protect your home. I mean, God forbid that you have a place of calling, a sense of home, a place where you can belong. Because in a world of open borders, in a world where nations no longer exist and just become memory, where would your sense of belonging be? If you no longer had a place to call your home, and if the whole world just became something like territories, numbers even, where would you call home? Oh, I live in number 1, or I live in number 2, or I am a thirdian, or I am a fourthian, or I am a fiftian, stuff like that. It sounds really stupid, I understand that, but there has been books written about such a world, and it's becoming scarily accurate. And another question is if the world drops its borders and there's no more national governments, who would rule? Would there be kind of like Star Wars, for example, where regional governors, they are in power in certain regions. You also have planetary leaders who, you'll have the regional governors who rule over all the other governors, but then, you have the governors who are at the control of each individual planet. Will there be something like that, where you have a regional, governor who rules over certain parts of the world with governors that rule over the old states? Is it possible? Maybe. Who knows? But the reality is, in the globalists and the leftist mind, even to achieve this type of future where there is no borders, no nations, even if it means destroying themselves and having the people suffer, they'll do it. Because they honestly believe that this is the way to world peace, when in reality it will probably cause much more conflict. Because people will eventually grow tired when their homes become constantly invaded. And yes, I'm going to use the term invaded here, because when you're getting an influx of people who take over your positions of power and start turning the nation to suit their own needs, their own views, their own culture, it is an invasion. It may not be an invasion of war, through blood, through fighting, but not every nation has failed a conquest. Many nations have failed just due to politics and people coming in and spreading their own ideas. Example, what's it called? The Purge? The Purge movies? The group that wanted to do the Purge in the timeline of the Purge, they did it legally. They came in, went through all the principles of politics and power, gained their power, and then implemented their belief on what would be best to secure the nation. Stuff like this happens, folks. I mean, we sit there and we think, Purge will never happen here. That's ridiculous. Well, yes, it is ridiculous. But if the right group and organization of people get that power and make it legal, what do you think's going to happen? Do you think people will stand up and say, no, this is ridiculous? Or will you have a lot of people running around saying, hell yeah, I can now kill people and get away with it? What do you think? Look at human history. Look at all that we've done to the planet and to each other. What do you think will happen? That's why in this viewpoint of open borders and nationless world, the same thing will happen. You will have a group, an organization, a religion, a creed, whatever. They will use this opportunity to create their own new empire. And they will crush the West. And the Western worlds are killing themselves with these practices, with these ideologies. But what's worse is you have politicians saying that their own home is better off falling from the face of the earth, all because of colonialism or imperialism from hundreds of years ago. Even the World War II, they're like, Europe destroyed the world, we don't deserve to live. That is bullshit. Every nation has a right to exist. And damn it, though we have been at war many times and in many areas, we have lived in peace for so long. Has there been bumps and wars along the way? Yes. Has there been just tragedies, massacres, and death along the way? Yes. But for the most part, we do live in a peaceful world, despite all the darkness going on. But if the left and globalists get their way, they will take the world and they will destroy every nation. The local population will have no place to call their home because it will be destroyed. The history will also probably be erased to prevent future generations from looking back and remembering what their nations were, what their greatest achievements were, what the nation became and how it was built. Because if you want to destroy a nation, you can't just say the nation no longer exists. You have to destroy its people. You have to destroy its history. You have to destroy its culture that's been embedded into the soil itself. Globalism and a nationless world will not bring world peace. It will be chaos. People rushing everywhere. And I bet you won't see people rushing to places in Central America, the Middle East, parts of Asia, or even Russia, or parts in Africa, or South America. You will see all of those counties rush to the Western worlds. Now, why is that? It's because the Western worlds have been the most advanced in just everything in the world for a long time now, and everyone wants a piece of that. But the only problem is you will have organizations, groups of people, religions, and creeds that will want to turn that into theirs and not allow us to keep what we have created. The West has done glorious things since its foundation. Yes, as I said, there's been bumps. There's been wars. There's been deaths. And there will be much more wars and much more deaths. But I urge everyone who watches this, you must see and realize that a nationless world will not be home for anyone. We will be nothing more but numbers, workers, labor. And you have to ask yourself, who would be in control? Because part of the nationless world is people can come in from any part of the world and vote in other nations' elections. So, think of it that way. If you have an organization that wants to take over the world, all they gotta do is pack up every month during an election, go to certain parts of the world, vote their people in, move, leave, do it again somewhere else, and repeat this process until they have their people in all the right positions of power to foresee their idea. of a globalist utopia. Sorry about this video, Darksiders, but with a lot of the things I've been seeing lately, I had to talk about it. Don't let the left and the globalists and the mainstream media fool you. Don't let them trick us, and don't let them destroy our culture and our entertainment, our heroes, our stories, our books, and our very history. If they continue to win because they have the right people in the right positions of power, if they're not stopped, what will become of our homes? What will become of our futures? Because I don't know about you, but I've been to a certain part of the world that is pretty damn bad. And I'd hate to see my home fall under the same guidelines, laws, and rules of that world, place of the world I've been into. This is Darkside Leathers.